We place an absolute, almost sacred trust in our doctors. They are the guardians of our health, our confidants in sickness, the last line of defense against death. But what happens when that guardian is the danger? What happens when the person we invite into our homes to heal us is in reality a serial killer? This is the terrifying, chilling story of Harold Shipman, a man known to history by the moniker he earned through unimaginable betrayal, Dr. Death, a killer who didn't lurk in the shadows but walked openly in a white coat and whose estimated victim count makes him one of the most prolific serial murderers the world has ever known. His name is synonymous with the profound violation of trust, and his reign of terror would last for more than 2 decades, hidden in plain sight across Greater Manchester, England. The final, shocking number? An estimated 250 patients killed, one injection at a time. The real horror isn't just the sheer number of victims. It's how simple, how quiet, and how tragically easy it was for him to get away with it. For over 2 decades, Harold Shipman lived 2 lives: the respected, friendly general practitioner and the calculating, cold-blooded murderer. If you're already hooked by this shocking story, hit that subscribe button now and ring the bell so you don't miss our deep dives into the darkest criminal minds. From 1972 until 1998, Shipman was seen as a pillar of the community, caring, attentive, and deeply involved in the health of his patients. This perception was his most effective weapon. He didn't need to break down doors or use weapons to subdue his victims. He simply needed a routine house call, a concerned bedside manner, and a syringe filled with an opioid, usually diamorphine. Shipman primarily targeted the elderly, particularly vulnerable women, administering a lethal dose and then recording the cause of death as natural. He wasn't caught in a sudden frenzy. He operated with methodical patience for 26 long years. His victims weren't found at night, which is when natural deaths are most common. Instead, Shipman had a signature. His patients were overwhelmingly found dead in bed during the day, often shortly after he had paid them a visit. But for years, no one looked closely enough to see the pattern. Shipman's incredible run finally began to falter, not because of a police breakthrough, but because of an administrative detail. The first major red flag was raised by someone outside the medical community altogether, an undertaker. This undertaker was surprised and eventually suspicious by the sheer, unexplainable volume of cremation certificates Shipman was signing. It wasn't just the number, it was the haste. The death rate in his practice was astronomically high, yet always signed off quickly by the trusted doctor. This wasn't an isolated concern. Several medical colleagues later reported their own anxieties to the police. They noticed the high mortality rate, the large number of sudden, unexpected deaths among his elderly patients. In 1998, the police opened an initial investigation into Shipman. They had the warnings, the patterns, and the suspicious cremation forms. But the police investigation was catastrophic. It was superficial, mishandled, and ultimately closed, concluding there was no satisfactory evidence. The biggest failure in the history of British law enforcement had just occurred, and because of it, Shipman walked free, returning to his practice and, tragically, continuing to kill. Before we get to the moment Shipman's luck finally ran out, take a second and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, subscribe to CrimeFacts for more cases like this. Shipman was a cold killer, but he was also a greedy one. It would not be his victims that caught him, but his own spectacular arrogance. In June of 1998, Shipman murdered his final victim, Kathleen Grundy, an active, wealthy 81-year-old former mayoress. After her death, Shipman urged her daughter, Angela Woodruff, to arrange a cremation, but she insisted on a burial. A few months later, Woodruff received a letter that purported to be Kathleen's will. This alleged will was astonishing. It cut Angela Woodruff and her family out entirely and left Mrs. Grundy's entire estate, valued at nearly £400,000, to her favorite doctor, Harold Shipman. The document itself was a clumsy forgery, poorly typed, riddled with grammatical errors, and suspiciously signed. Angela Woodruff knew her mother would never have done this. This act of blatant, reckless greed, trying to profit from a patient's death, finally led to the level of scrutiny Shipman had evaded for decades. Woodruff went straight to the police, and this time they couldn't afford to look away. The investigation that followed was meticulous and devastating. Police quickly exhumed the body of Kathleen Grundy. The discovery was immediate and conclusive. Lethal doses of diamorphine were found in her system. The trail of death Shipman had hidden for 26 years was finally exposed. The police broadened their scope, exhuming the bodies of nearly a dozen of his former patients. Each exhumation told the same horrifying story. In the year 2000, Harold Shipman was finally brought to justice. He was convicted on 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery, receiving 15 life sentences. A subsequent public inquiry concluded that Harold Shipman was responsible for the deaths of at least 250 patients. It became clear that this monster, who practiced in 2 different offices throughout Greater Manchester, had spent his entire career systematically abusing the most fundamental trust in society. Shipman himself maintained his innocence until the very end, never offering an explanation, an apology, or any form of remorse. On January 13, 2004, 4 years into his prison sentence, Harold Shipman was found dead in his cell. He had committed suicide by hanging, taking any final answers with him to the grave. The story of Harold Shipman remains one of the darkest chapters in modern criminal history. It's a chilling reminder of the fragility of trust, a trust that was shattered by Dr. Death. Thank you for watching. If this case shocked you, hit the like button. Leave a comment letting us know which true crime story we should cover next. And if you haven't already, subscribe to CrimeFacts for weekly deep dives into the criminal underworld.